so that's just kind of to preface it. The other thing is there's a couple slides that it would be funner, more fun, more fun for you to see up close. So we'll pass around the laptop at that point. Most of the stuff is like written stuff, and there are some pictures of some of the herbs. So if you don't know what a certain herb looks like, most of the pictures I have are of fresh herbs, and then I have most of the herbs dried over here, or all of the herbs are dried over there. So, all right. So to start with, tea. I'm just going to go through a kind of brief history of what traditional tea is. So traditional tea is actually called, the scientific name, and I'm probably going to butcher this a little bit, so bear with me, Camellia sinensis sinensis. All right. It's an evergreen bush, and it originated in China. And they actually used tea as currency, which I thought was amazing. Wow. So, the Dutch brought it to Europe in around 1610-ish, and then it just kind of spread, because at that point, a lot of European nations were using herbs for tea and not necessarily this special tea, or the tea bush. And then in India, then they also discovered this Camellia sinensis assimica, which is, it's the same plant, different version, if that makes sense. So some teas nowadays specifically come from the assimica kind, and some come from the specific sinensis kind. You can look up on YouTube how to say it properly. So just you can look up further history then too, but I just wanted to give you kind of a little bit of history there. All right, and of course India was British controlled, so we have tea in the whole American colonies and all that good stuff. So, all right, then I just have a quick thing of processing. If you want it, I can email this PowerPoint out later too if you want to know this, but processing of tea. So green tea, black tea, yellow tea, post-fermented tea, pura tea, all comes from those two plants that I talked about. So black tea is processed a little bit differently. There's orthodox and there's non-orthodox processing. Non-orthodox processing is like cutting and tearing is a quicker way of processing, whereas the orthodox would be the more traditional way of processing tea. So basically they do a rolling, they do an oxidization/fermentation, and then they do a drying for black tea. So you have different kinds. You have, I don't know if I have that on this slide. No, I have it on. Okay. Well, while I'm talking, you guys can pass this around, because this kind of gives a brief overview of how the different teas come and how they're processed. So it's a little easier to see in a picture sometimes than me talking. So black tea has caffeine content of about 14 to 61 milligrams. And then this is the tea that you can basically boil away. You can boil you boil your water 200 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and then pour it over, cover it, and let it steep for anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. So it can withstand a lot of heat.
Excuse me, what do you mean by boiling it away?
Oh, I meant like, so you can have the water as hot as water can go, as far as we can cook on a stove type hotness. And you're not going to burn the tea or make it like worse. Like green tea, you want a lower temperature.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'll talk about that with green tea. Okay.
You said burn the tea. I burned my green tea.
Oh, okay. I do too. I do too. So, but all right. So health benefits of black tea. You have antioxidants, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. One of those is a polyphenol, which reduces LDL cholesterol and lowers blood sugars, actually. Another one is flavonoids. I don't know if any people have heard of that, but it helps with heart disease. They've also done some studies that it helps with gut health and bacteria in your gut. And then the other thing, so people think about caffeine in tea causing you to be able to focus, and that's why it's so good for you. There's actually an L-thyrine amino acid that actually works synergistically with caffeine and helps to, with the alpha activity of the brain, the alpha waves in the brain, and it allows you to be relaxed and more alert. So it gives that twofold benefit. And actually all the teas will have that, but it's just one of those in black tea. So green tea, you have, the way it's processed is it's steamed or roasted, and then it's cold, then they roll it, and then they dry it, and then they roll it again, and then they dry it again. So there's no fermenting with this. All right, so you have more of a fresh tea. It's usually tea that comes from China, so the Senesis kind, not the Senesis Assimica kind. You have multiple styles. You have Chinese style, you have a Japanese style, and then, so I don't know if anybody's heard of gunpowder green tea. That's a Chinese style, or matcha green tea. That's a Japanese style. So they just have, there's multiple others.
But they're all rolled and unrolled and all that?
Yeah,
That's
so
like
there,
standard?
so each of those would have a little bit different of a way of doing it, but the general process is that steaming first, and then doing a rolling, drying type thing. So, all right.
What do you mean by rolling?
So from my understanding, is they have it out and they just roll it flat so that it's a little bit easier to dry, is my understanding. So you don't have crispy, like when things dry, you have things kind of bending and doing. So then you have more of a flatter tea. Usually, so most of the teas in tea bags are all cut up and chopped up, and that's actually, they can just about put anything in there.
Kind of the dust of
Dust
it.
off the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
So the higher grade teas are going to be the teas that are whole leaf teas.
Right.
It's like a cigar versus a cigarette. A cigar is
Yeah.
whole tobacco.
Probably.
Cigarette is all mushed up.
Yeah, from my understanding. And I'm still learning, so if anybody else has something that I don't say quite right, please correct me, because my understanding might be a little limited in some of these areas. So, so with green tea, the caffeine content is anywhere from 24 to 40 milligrams. So it's less than black tea for the most part, but it can be as much as black tea. So it depends on where the tea comes from, and when it was processed, what time of the year it was processed, a bunch of things. So, green tea you want to prepare. You don't want to boil the water. You want it to be 160 to 180 degrees. So if you don't have, like I have a special teapot that tells me the degrees on it, and I still do 112 or 212. And I'm not a fan of green tea, and I think that's why, because I burn it. But I've done it the right way now, and it's like, okay, this is all right. It's still not my favorite, but it's all right, you know.
So,
But-
excuse me, technically you're saying don't ever bring it to a boiling.
Yeah. For green tea.
Green or what?
That's
Green.
interesting.
Yeah.
Bring
So-
it to a boil, I'm like.
Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
you're saying don't, oh.
No, don't. So the way they actually, you can look up ways that you don't have to have a temperature thermometer to know exactly. You can guesstimate, whenever it starts to steam type of thing,
Sure.
that it may be time to.
It's hot and
Yeah.
not boiling.
Yeah. So, and then this you don't want to steep as long. If you want like just a lighter green tea, anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds that you're going to let it sit in the water, and then you're going to remove the tea. Or if you want a more robust tea, 2 to 3 minutes. So it's quite a bit less time than black tea. So, and I thought this was interesting. All teas have of the Sinensis plant have the polyphenols, but green tea especially has, per weight, 30% of it is made up of polyphenols, which is the antioxidant that helps with LDL, cholesterol, and blood sugars, which I thought was amazing. That's part of the reason probably why green tea is in the media saying health benefits.
And a lot of anti-cancer
Yeah.
benefits as well.
Yeah, there is a lot of good things with green tea. Yeah, yeah. It has this catechin, I'm probably not saying that right, EGCG, that prevents cell damage and reduces the formation of free radicals, which would help with cancer. Also with the brain function, like I talked about with black tea, and the synergist effect with caffeine. And it also, they've done some studies, but nothing like super strong with this, with boosting metabolic rate, which may help with weight loss. But they're a little unsure on that one. So it may decrease the risk of breast, prostate, and colorectal cancer specifically. Helps with brain health, and they've actually done some studies where it kills bacteria and inhibits viruses, especially for dental health. So if you're drinking the tea, you're getting it right in your teeth and your gums and everything. So I'm like, okay, yeah, switch it around a little bit. So then we'll move on to white tea. So white tea is the green bud. So whenever, green tea, yes. So if you want to try it, we can let this steep a little bit and see how it opens up. So it's a flowering tea. So it's green tea and then the jasmine in the center. So you'll see a jasmine white flower come out. You might have to get close later on, but we can do that.
This is what it comes like.
Yeah, so that comes in a little tied up ball. So
Can we see it?
Wow.
I'm sorry, the light's glaring. Okay.
Yeah.
You buy it
Yeah.
like that?
yeah. So it's kind of a fun thing. So all right. So white tea, the green bud. So it's an evergreen bush. This tea bush is. So you're constantly cutting it at different periods through the year. So that first little bud that comes up, it's covered in little white hairs, and that's why they call it white tea. But they'll pick that first bud, and they'll do a withering for like 72 hours. Then they'll dry it, and that's the tea you have. So there's no rolling, there's no fermenting. It's just basically the very fresh, finest little bit of tea, and goes straight to you, with some drying, of course. So there's many different types. I don't know if you've heard of silver needle or let's see, monkey picked white tea. Some of the different kinds, but there's some other kinds. With the caffeine level with that, it depends on how and when it was processed. It can be as much as black tea and green tea, or it can be very little. So you don't know exactly how much caffeine, but it's one of those things that it also works well with the L-thyrine, which helps with the brain. So it's that synergistic effect with caffeine. It's not just straight caffeine, which is great. All right, then we'll get into some unusual teas. I don't know if anybody's heard of Pura tea, and I'm not sure if I'm quite saying that right. It's actually under a heading called post-fermented tea, and it has to do with how it's processed. There's a fixing process at 100 degrees Celsius, and then they do this thing where they're either raw or ripe teas this way. So the raw way they do it is they compress this tea into cakes, they let it sit and ferment for a little bit and oxidize slowly, and then they'll, I think they do it drying somehow and then hand it out. Then the ripe one, you basically sit the tea on piles on this porous floor and make compost. It's the closest way I could think of how it works. Because it sits there and they put wet cloths over it and uncover it, let it dry and sort it and kind of do back and forth. And then they compress it in cakes and give it to people to eat and drink, or drink rather. And that whole process, there's a whole tea culture behind Pura tea where you do rinsing of tea, and it's a little beyond me yet, so I'm getting there. But I have tried Pura tea. It tastes a little bit more earthy, I will say that. So, then there's another kind of tea called yellow tea. It's similar to green tea, but it's only processed in China. And this is similar to green tea as well in how you steep it. It's actually very rare and expensive. I've never tried it. But it's a way that they process it, and then they fire it on charcoal pits and pan fire it and do all this type of drying. So it's quite interesting. So if you ever want to try yellow tea, invite me. I will try it with you.
That's right.
Yeah, oh my goodness. All right. Then I don't know if anybody's heard of rooibos tea. Yes. So rooibos tea is actually not a tea. It's an herbal tea, which I'll use the word tea right now. I'll tell you about what it's actually called later on. It's from a South African plant, Aspergillus linearis. I'm probably not saying that right, I apologize. It is caffeine free. And this one you can do like black tea. So you can boil the water, and it's 4 to 5 minutes steeping, and it's very good health-wise, blood pressure and circulation, heart health, skin, hair, weight loss, diabetes, cancer prevention, and it actually boosts bone health, which I thought was really cool. Okay. Yeah.
Our Love How Long box this month had a box of ribose, whatever, and I brought it along, sitting over there on the counter, so help yourself.
Ooh, okay. Cool. I didn't bring any rubos.
We usually have that a lot at
Sorry.
nighttime before we go to bed.
Yeah. So it's a really good tea. So, all right. Why do we use herbs? So I'm going to get into the herbal part of teas, or tisanes is actually what they're called. So anything that you see tea is going to be from those plants I mentioned before, the Camellia sinus, or the Camellia sinica. Anyway, but herbal teas would be, scientifically, they're going to be a tisane, and it's spelled Tisane or Ptisane, but it's pronounced tisane. So, why do we use herbs? Anybody have things that you use for herbs? You can shout them out. Huh? Health benefits. So what kind of, flavor, yeah. So,
Salves.
huh?
Salves and different things.
Yes, yeah. So all kinds of things we use it for. So some of the things I'm going to talk about are immune support, cold and flu support, stress relief, digestion support, healing, balancing hormones, and we use herbs a lot in cooking, so, and spices. I'm sure tonight we had some. I know this morning we had some. The za'atar is definitely a very good herb. So, all right. So herbal teas. There is a difference. I'm going to use the word tea because that's what we're used to. So, you can use fresh, the fresh plant, which you would use a larger amount then, or you can use the dried amount, and then it's more concentrated, so you want to use a lesser amount. And some herbs and plants you can only use dried, or you're supposed to only use dried because there's potential poisonous side effects like elderberry, or I'm trying to think, is there anything else that does anybody know? Elderberry I know is one of the bigger ones that you're supposed to cook or dry. So, so yeah. Then we are going into how to make teas. So you have methods of infusion, which you would mainly use for the delicate parts of the plant, which we normally would do. So when we make tea, you take water and pour it over the tea and you let it steep. That would be an infusion, a hot water infusion. And then along with that infusion, you can also do a solar infusion where you put the herbs with the water and you sit it out in the sun for an hour or however long you want. We grew up making sun tea, which was a black tea or a green tea.
How long do you want that to steep?
It's probably good. We can probably, yeah, it'd probably be good now to start drinking. Yeah. Thank you. So that's always a fun way to do that. And then you can do cold water infusions where you combine the herbs and the water, and then you can either let it sit for a couple hours or overnight. And sometimes that is a nice way to do like your menstrual help herbs, because it's not so much work, and then you can, next morning you have tea and you're like, okay, let's go, you know? Then there is decoction, which you would do for roots and tougher parts of the material. So your like your licorice root, your dandelion root, things like that. And when you do that, you can either soak those herbs overnight and then boil them, or you can just simply place them in a pot and boil them for anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes. Remove from the heat and strain. And then you can actually reuse those herbs again, like put them in the refrigerator and use them for 1 to 2 more days. So you're not feeling like you were wasting all this stuff. So with the chai this morning that I made, I'm going to try and do that and have that tomorrow so we can reuse some of those herbs. All right. Proportion-wise, for teas, most teas, herbal teas, you want about 1 teaspoon per cup of water. If you have too much, then it can make the tea really strong and bitter, and you're like, yuck. And for benefits of health, they say adult dosing is about 3 to 4 cups a day for whatever tea that you're drinking, for whatever health reason you're drinking.
Is there harm if you do more?
Not necessarily, and this depends on the herb. So if there's certain herbs that it's like if you're taking too much.
I'm thinking green tea.
Oh, yeah. No, sorry, I switched
Yeah,
tracks.
you did. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And then they I had included some things about, so about 1 ounce of dried herb to about 1 quart of water, which is the same as 1 teaspoon to 1 cup of water, just kind of give you a proportion. So if you want to do a cold water infusion, then it's easier to kind of figure out. A lot of recipes then also will include, instead of saying 1 teaspoon of this, 1 tablespoon of this, they'll say 1 part this, 2 parts this, a half part this, a fourth part this. So the part measurement then is whatever measurement you want to use. So you can make the recipe however small or however big you want to use, which I think is kind of nice. So that part could be a teaspoon, tablespoon, cup, quart, however much you want to do. So some of I have some recipes over printed out on the table that you guys can have then. And some of them are in tablespoons and teaspoons, and some of them are in parts. So that way you don't get confused. So herbs in children. Herbs are really good for children, but there are certain herbs that you probably want to watch with children. And with trying anything new, you probably want to do a small dose test just to make sure, because people have reactions. A lot of times it's more like a hives or a swelling in the throat if you're ingesting it. So just being careful with that. Along with children's, there's the Clark's rule, where they take the child's weight in pounds divided by 150, and then that's the approximate fraction of the adult dosage. So you take the adult dosage and multiply it by the fraction, and that would give you what the child's dose is. Does that make sense?
Why 150? Just like 150 pounds?
So you take the pounds divided by 150. 150 is the standard. It's just the standard. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, and then I have a special tea. It's called 3 Needs tea that has lemon balm, catnip, and chamomile. And it's just something that's very simple to make. And with that tea, I'll talk about each of these things. So as I go through this, I have a certain tea and the ingredients I'll go through. And a lot of the ingredients and herbs are repeated, so I won't repeat them all. I'll just repeat the new ones, if that makes sense, or start with new ones. And then I just wanted to throw a mention in there with raw honey. They say if your child is less than a year, you shouldn't be giving raw honey, and that's due to Clostridium botulism.
Is it just raw honey? I thought it was just honey.
It's raw honey. I believe so. Which, I mean, if it's honey that's pasteurized, you're going to kill the bacteria. So just to be mindful of that. I'm not going to judge you if you give your children honey. So.
Good. There's a story behind every judgment.
Exactly. So, all right. So the first herb I have is lemon balm, and lemon balm is high in tannins, which is an antioxidant. It's anxiety, stress relief, colic help, helps with dementia with the brain, upset stomach. It actually helps with herpes simplex virus infections, insomnia, and I found this really interesting, and I just threw this in there. It has nothing to do with ingestion of tea, but it actually helps to deter moths with linen, and that was specifically linen. So, not linen. So I don't know if it would be different. I know we were talking about
If you
this
would put
earlier.
lemon balm in your dish.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, since we like linen so much, anyway.
Wait, what does the lemon balm do? I'm sorry.
It helps to deter moths from linen. So the next one is catnip, and I know everybody thinks catnip and they think about cats, and I had some beautiful pictures of cats just for Carrie. But it actually helps with pain-related digestion, helps with pain-related menstruation, helps with colic, whooping cough, intestinal gas, hiccups, stomach spasms. So it's a nerve soother, and it's a, I'm sorry, I practice this word, febrifuge, which means that it helps to induce sweating and cools the body by inducing that sweating, so it helps with fevers. It is also a mild central nervous sedative. So it's one of those things you want to take before bedtime.
So that's all catnip.
Catnip. Yeah.
That's in the mint family, isn't it?
I believe
What's
so.
it taste like?
What's a what?
We'll taste it then.
The mint family.
If it has a square stem, it's a part of the mint family.
Yeah.
I accidentally named catnip.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't.
So, and the other thing I thought, just throwing this in the ingestion wise, but it's a cockroach repellent, and I was like, I can take that one. The next one is chamomile, and chamomile, I didn't realize chamomile was this awesome, so I'm excited about chamomile. I was never really a fan of how it tasted, but I think I was steeping it for too long. So, I know, well, you do the temperature, it's okay. So herbal teas, you want that hot temperature for most of them. You're steeping it for 1 to 2 minutes, and then it won't have that bitter taste. So for children, for this tea, they recommend steeping the tea for only 1 to 2 minutes instead of, I set the chamomile on my tea and I let it sit there until I'm done drinking it. And then it's not so great tasting, so, yeah. But chamomile is an antispasmodic, which means it relaxes muscles, especially uterine muscles, and it's very soothing to the muscles, smooth muscles. So I was like, perfect one for menstrual cycle. Yes.
Also after you've had a baby too.
Yes, exactly, yes. It's anti-inflammatory, and especially with viral colds, steam inhalation is the best way with chamomile. So if you make tea, you get both. You get the steam and you get the drink in the internal. I found this really fascinating. With your gastrointestinal tract, it actually, and esophagus and whatnot, it helps reduce gastric acidity more effectively than antacids, which I thought was amazing. And then in addition to that, it inhibits Helicobacter pylori, which is the bacteria that causes ulcers, stomach ulcers. So we should all be drinking chamomile tea every night before we go to bed.
Along with catnip and
Yes.
Excuse me, can I ask a question about
Yeah.
chamomile?
Yeah.
Okay, so I try to drink that and there's just like no flavor to it. And I can't stand tea that's just like flavored water. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I started putting 2 tea bags in a cup of tea and leaving it in forever to try to get more like
It could be the
flavors.
brand that you're
It
using.
could be,
maybe.
yeah.
Oh, it's like it's an organic.
I had some there tonight.
It could be, sometimes, like, tea bags can get old and maybe you're tasting the flavor of the tea bag or the non-flavor of the tea bag. Or if the chamomile is old, it may not have as good a flavor. I'm not sure.
So I was wondering if it's any different when you buy it fresh. Well, I guess it would
Like
be.
if you buy
but,
fresh
I mean,
chamomile, yeah.
loose is what I mean, rather than
Loose
tea
is,
bags.
loose is always gonna be better quality.
Is it really?
Yeah. Because when you put it in a tea bag, they can put whatever they want and you don't really see.
It's mostly,
Yeah.
and tea bags are like the least flavorful and least.
That's my issue then. I don't
Yeah,
have one of those.
it's like the dust
Yeah.
of what's been chopped and.
Yeah.
It depends, and there's a whole, actually you can go to the Central Market in Lancaster. They have a whole couple stands that have tea, but there's one lady that has like jars and jars and jars of loose leaf tea.
Yeah, natural
Wow.
food stores will have loose leaf tea,
I
especially
know
in
it's
Louisville.
there, I just.
Yeah. I'll show you.
I guess that's what I need to do. I
I'll
need to
show
search.
you some easier ways to then, like, get that tea, the loose leaf stuff out of your tea so it's not so time consuming too.
Right.
At
If
least
you
in
add
my
it
mind,
to like
so.
the chamomile, if you want more flavor, just add in another type of tea too, and then you'd have
Yeah.
that flavor
And then
while
you
still
add
I
it
was
getting
to
the
thinking
that
at
chamomile.
bedtime, but I
Well, if
didn't
you
know
add
that
like
catnip
lemon
was
balm
also.
or
just-
catnip, it's gonna be, it'll still have
Have
those
something
calming
else that had more
effects.
flavor, but then still get the benefits of the chamomile.
Yeah. You can try it tonight. I have a
I
mixture
will
of
try
it.
your
How about that?
specialty. It's
No.
not gonna keep me awake though, right?
No.
It shouldn't. They're
It should
all
actually help you
caffeine-free.
sleep.
So it also is a fever reducer, helps with sleep, chamomile, and depression help. It actually has a similar effect to like benzodiazepine. And then topical, I thought that was interesting. It helps with pain. You can use it as a hair brightener, and it
This is
helps.
chamomile?
Yeah, and the herb.
Does it take the gray away?
It's a hair brightener. I don't know.
Lightener, not a lightener, just
Yeah. And it helps with inflamed gums as well. So I thought that was really cool. So your dentist will be happy with you. All right. So the next tea we're going to talk about is immunity teas, and a lot of these herbs are going to be good for immunity anyway. But immunity is one of my passions right now. So the tea I have for that is Get Strong, Stay Strong tea. and I'll go through. I believe it has. I know it has chamomile in it, and I forget what else. But then I have a bunch of other stuff in it, which I'll go over. But immunity, we want to be able to help the body to fight disease. So fight viruses, bacteria, parasites, etc. I don't know if you all have heard of Pasteur and his germ theory. Okay. So can you refresh? Just anybody shout out what is the germ theory?
The germs make you sick.
Yeah. So that was his whole premise, that germs are the reason for disease.
Yeah.
So. Okay. So in my class here, I was learning about another guy called Anton Bechamp, who has he was a contemporary of Pasteur, and he had this theory of terrain theory. And his theory basically was that no, germs don't cause disease. It's a break in the body's terrain. So if the body is healthy and in homeostasis, you're not having any openings on your skin, you're not having any problems with your mucous barriers, your intestinal tract is doing what it's supposed to, is healthy. Virus, germ, bacteria comes in, you're not going to get sick. Your body's going to kick that out. So I've sort of changed my my theory idea to I'm going with the terrain theory versus the Pasteur theory. They work hand in hand, but I don't think Pasteur's theory is the end-all be-it-all. So it just was really interesting to me because terrain theory is not taught in schools. Pasteur theory is. So it changes your perspective then too to say, okay, I want to keep the body as healthy and give my body the stuff that needs to be able to fight infections and things like this, instead of I'm going to use antibacterial soap or something like that. So anyway. So immunity also with this, stress is a big thing that causes our body damage. And I know we've talked about this probably quite a bit, or different people have. And I found this fascinating that stress actually, they've done studies that actually show it starts micro tears in your blood vessels. So you think about that in the terrain theory, so you have stress, you have fear, you have anxiety, you are making small tears in your blood vessels, which allow plaque to build up, which allow you to lose nutrients, which allows viruses and other things, or bacteria, to be able to have better access to your bloodstream. So you're introducing yourself up for a lot of problems. So we want to keep our bodies strong and stress-free. So keeping our minds and bodies in perfect peace, like the scripture says, is very important. So a lot of people talk about free radicals, and I just want to mention this here to know what free radicals are and why they're such a problem. Basically, free radicals cause cellular, and that includes DNA, damage by stealing electrons through a process of oxidization. So your body is made up of electrons, protons, neutrons, and the cell at the cellular level. And so you're constantly, and I'm still trying to understand this, so I apologize. If somebody else can explain this better, please do. But your body is wanting to balance out protons and electrons. So whenever you, when the free radicals would steal or that process stealing electrons, the protons are trying to even out, and they're trying to find electrons, and they're going to find them wherever they can. And then that may cause damage to the cell because it may not be the right section of electron, or right amount of electrons and whatnot. So our bodies are wonderfully and amazingly made. So did that make sense? Or if anybody knows anything different, please speak up. All right. So I just thought that was interesting because a lot of herbs are going to be help against free radicals. So the next one is elderberries, which is in that immunity tea. It's immunostimulant, which I found this fascinating. Elderberries and elderflowers, they're both from the same plant, and they have a little bit different uses, but they are very, their very strong component is to fight like pulmonary and respiratory infections. But one of the things they really do in doing that is they prevent the viruses from gaining access to the cell. So it's helping your body, that immunity to say, I'm gonna keep healthy terrain and kick this out. Antioxidant, they've done studies that it actually shortens colds and it allows them to be less severe, especially sore throats, coughs, things like that. It's an anemia remedy. There's some questions on whether it lowers LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol. And this is the one you want to cook or dry before you use it. Elderflowers, the same plant, similar to elderberry. They've done some studies with infections in the sinuses. It helps to decrease swelling. Talked about pulmonary or respiratory infections, and it's actually a gentle laxative, so it's always nice. Echinacea is the next one. It's an antiviral, and this is another one. It inhibits the enzyme that viruses will use to gain access to a cell. Some of these they've done a lot more studies, so I'm able to like talk about some things in depth, and then other ones they're just like folklore, or this is what, not folklore, but this is what they've used for generations. So I'm excited when I can find little tidbits that are scientific. Helps to decrease inflammation, which is always wonderful because that's actually what, a lot of times inflammation is what's going to cause us pain and discomfort when we're sick, which is your body fighting the infection usually. Increases your white blood cell count so your body can fight the problem, and it attacks yeast and other fungi, which is always great because we kind of tend to have a yeast overgrowth in this nation. So helps aches and pains. Sorry, did I miss something?
No, I quickly forgot what you were talking
Oh,
about.
okay, okay.
Echinacea, I think it's Greek.
Echinacea.
It means hedgehog, which is great when you think about the little cone flower that it
Yeah,
comes from. It looks like a little.
I forgot about that. Thank you. All right. So the next one's peppermint, and peppermint is like amazing. I love peppermint. It's a general tonic, very good for digestion. They've done studies with inflammatory bowel syndrome or irritable bowel syndrome. Yeah, that one. Yeah. And it helps relax the smooth muscle. Actually, peppermint is special to me too because I've done a study in the hospital with with urine and women after surgery having a catheter removed. If peppermint would help them urinate faster. Because it's the same smooth muscle and whatnot. So my study was very small, and it came out that it was about even whether it helped as far as length of time. We were looking at length of time and whether or not they had to be recatheterized. But the overall experience was very pleasant for the patients that did have it. So more studies needs to come out of that. But
You did that by.
I did that by putting peppermint oil in the urinary collection device in the toilet before they urinated, before they sat down.
For a woman after birth, we would just, like, if she was having a hard time going after birth, we would let her smell it.
Yeah.
And we always made them tea with peppermint.
Okay, that's very good because actually tea with peppermint would probably be better because it's going everywhere.
Right after birth, we would give them tea with peppermint and a whole bunch of herbs.
That's really good. So actually all the evidence that I could find to allow me to do that study was all midwifery evidence, anecdotal type evidence. So it was really cool. I was like, oh yay, excited. Let's see. So relaxing smooth muscle helps with painful menstruation, which would make sense because the uterine is a muscle. They actually did a study with peppermint, and it actually they did it with healthy students, and they did cognitive testing, and they were able to perform better and have better concentration, which was just amazing. I'm like, every student should drink peppermint tea before a test.
A lot of teachers give like peppermint mints. Or they let them chew like peppermint gum.
So it helps to stimulate that brain.
Sugar's always helpful.
Yeah, before
Hey, at least
Get healthy.
trying.
They give you an idea, but
Yeah. So peppermint also helps with weight.
Lena has something to add.
Oh yes, go ahead.
If you mix peppermint and orange oil together, the blend I found is called Pep Talk, but basically you can use that and rub it on your wrists and then on your forehead and stuff before studying, and it helps. And then my brothers have used it before their tests, and they said it helped a lot. Helps them stay more awake more.
Yeah.
Red and orange.
Yeah, so essential oils, yes, definitely. That sounds really good. I will have to try that next time I have to take a test. I think quite a few people have used peppermint oil for headache relief, essential oils I know quite a bit, and the reason why it helps with that is because of the methanol in peppermint. It increases the blood flow, and it's also that cooling sensation.
Menthol.
So,
Menthol.
menthol.
Methanol comes out of
Methanol is,
Sorry.
yeah.
I said it too fast.
We know what you meant.
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction.
As long as you're not dead, you're still doing well.
It's an antibacterial as well. It kills E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella, and Staphylococcus, which are all like bacteria that are prevalent in hospitals, as well as showers and food and things like that. So, it actually helps with allergies as well. It has rosmarinic acid in it, which rosmarinic acid sounds like rosemary, right? And so rosemary would also have this. It actually reduces runny nose, itchy eyes, and asthma-like symptoms. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So, next one's licorice root. It helps with cough, inflamed throat. It's an expectorant, which makes you cough, get everything junky out of you. This one also is another one they've done studies that it stops viruses from replicating in the tissues. So it's quite interesting to say, okay, these people have been using these herbs for years and getting these results, and then science comes along and goes, yes, you were right. So I like when that happens. Helps to soothe the stomach, and it's also a mild laxative. And it has this, phytoestrogen. Phytoestrogen, yes. So that sounds like estrogen, right? So if you're having menopausal symptoms, it helps with hot flashes. So it's one of those good herbs for that. Anti-inflammatory, it acts like a hydrocortisone cream, and it helps to regulate cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So we want to try and keep that.
It helps the adrenals.
Yeah, so
And
along with
regulate.
that cortisol, yeah. Thanks. This is licorice. Yeah.
So I have a question about licorice because
Yeah.
I was buying this yerba mate licorice tea
Mm-hmm.
and I can't find it anymore. So what brands, I can't find it anywhere, licorice tea. Does anybody know where?
I would just buy licorice, dried licorice roots, and decoct it.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I have to start thinking about that kind of tea.
I'll show you it out. I'll show you it out here and see what you think.
Okay.
Okay.
You know the lady where you get the lip balm, that
Yeah.
Amish lady, she sells it.
I know, okay, she sells all kinds of teas, but I have to just start, I have to go get a steeper, okay. So, does licorice help with sleep? Has anybody heard that? Or midwives?
Because it helps with the adrenals, it will
That
help
one.
regulate the sleep. It's
That one
gonna
makes
be
sense.
like an adaptogenic herb that
Okay.
it'll either help give you energy depending on what your adrenals need,
Yeah.
or it'll help calm you down so that you can sleep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next one's rose hips, which is actually the fruit of roses. It's a gentle laxative, and it's actually really, really rich in vitamin C. Although it's best for the high vitamin C content is when it's fresh. So the ones I have are dried. I believe it still has some vitamin C, I'm going to say, but
So now you're still
But-
talking about licorice?
no, I'm talking about rose
vitamins,
hips.
or, rose
Rose hips, sorry. I switched. So, and there's other benefits that, but I couldn't find anything like super scientific to back it up, so I left it out of the presentation.
Do you have something on how you use rose hips, like between it being on the rose bush and drinking it as a tea?
So you just pick it off and you can steep it, and
Dried, or do
you
you?
can use it fresh or you can use it dried.
So you don't have to like
Yeah.
crush it or open it or.
Just
the
you
whole
can
thing.
just have the whole thing
Is-
in, and,
I'm sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
They say after the first frost is when it's
Okay.
best, when it's actually
That
the
one makes
highest in
sense.
vitamin C, after a frost.
Okay, that makes
So then
sense.
you can cut off and use it.
Cool. Good to know. I feel a little inadequate sometimes because I'm like, I know these people in here that know more than me, so. But I'm so glad you guys are speaking up. That's very good. Thank you. So, the next one is Astragalus astragalus. Thank you. Root. And this one helps with viral infections. Helps rebuild the white blood cell count. Really good antioxidant. Fights free radicals, like I talked about before. It helps to protect the liver. which I thought was amazing because a lot of things are damaging to the liver. Alcohol, to name one. A lot of medications are damaging the liver, so you want something that's going to protect that. Anti-inflammatory, they've done a lot of studies with heart disease and cholesterol, with the saponins and polysaccharides, and it also helps immature T helper cells. So, and the T helper cells are those cells that are going to help your body to fight infections and give your body that immunity too. So the next one has to do with women's help tea. So I had 3 teas because we're all women here. So I was like, all right, well, 2 little boys, but. So there's cramps teas, tonic tea, and PMS support tea. And they all kind of have some repeating things in them. So I'm, like I said before, I'm just doing the new things. So some of these teas have other things. But ginger, stimulating, warming, aromatic, digestive. It's a good tonic for nerves and the digestion organs to help stimulate digestive juices, expel worms, cures colds, sore throats, diarrhea, nausea, menstrual cramps. It works just as well as ibuprofen, which was like, I
have a full story on that.
yeah, all right. One more thing on ginger, and then I want you to share the story. And then topical, it's really good for toothaches, and then headaches if you apply it to a hot cloth and put it on your head. So that's all I had on ginger, so go ahead.
Just that I basically did my own little case study, I guess. I made this super strong ginger tea down in Brazil, ginger and lime. So we had limes.
Okay.
And I would pour hot water over it and then blend that and the lime up together.
Ooh.
And then I did put some sugar in because just to make the girls
How
drink it.
wonderful.
But they went from losing a day or 2 working to coming up and saying, I need the tea, drinking a couple of cups of really strong tea. And the sugar was mostly just to balance because it was really hot.
Yeah.
Because I had blended it.
Yeah.
This was for cramping?
Yeah, and then they would go back down to work.
I think
Wow.
teenagers would drink that.
These were all teenagers.
That's really
That's why I put the sugar in.
Yeah.
Because they were all teenagers.
Well, if you maybe you can put
I had
honey
brown
in
sugar.
it,
I
or
had
something.
brown
that would be-
sugar from Brazil, so it
Oh,
was
okay, yeah.
authentic brown sugar.
So Amanda, you're,
I'm sorry.
you're not referring to anything concerning midwifery, you're just talking about.
This was just teenage
PMS
girls with really bad cramps that they would lose a day or 2 and vomit. And just this really strong ginger with the lime.
So you
Lime
the nausea, the pain,
The ginger
everything
root.
would help with that.
And lime is really good for helping the liver, to support the liver. So
That would be good.
a lot of nausea comes from a congested liver.
Okay.
So I think the 2 together was really.
Yeah. Huh, that's really cool. I will try that next time. Alright, ginger. Nettle. Stinging nettle. And I think some people call it, fire...
Burn nettle.
Burn
hazel.
burn nettle?
Burn hazel.
Is that what you
Burn
said?
That's what
Witch hazel.
Aton's burning nettle? Oh, okay. We always call it stinging nettle where I'm from, so...
Yeah, it's
Um,
not the same.
I think the same thing.
Really? Stinging
Really?
I know it is stinging.
Stinging nettle. Anyway. So this one I was just like, wow, because you can eat this like spinach, you can make tea out of it. It's like an all around herb that just is amazing to me. I mean, you need to be, it's painful to pick it, so you want to pick it with gloves or whatnot, and cover your hands so you're not doing that. But as soon as you dry it or cook it, it loses its sting. So strengthen and support the whole body. Very rich in iron, calcium, vitamin C, K, and B.
Some people will use it like on their arthritis or if you have sore joints or whatever.
Because it hurts so bad they don't feel the
It stimulates the
Things
blood
it out a
flow
little.
and it like does help. Like my mom has used
Actually,
it
an
before.
interesting story about stinging nettle. If you do get it on you, peppermint oil is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew and I, on our bike trip, she ended up wrecking and rolling in stinging nettle. And we were trying to figure out what to put on it, and all I had was my oil kit with me, and I was like, well, cooling, peppermint, okay. And so she rubbed that all over, and then within like 10 minutes, the stinging was gone. It was like, so if you ever get it, if you're harvesting stinging nettle,
Roll in stinging.
They say if you mush it up and apply it too, it helps to take that, to take the sting out too. So it's its own remedy.
It has the most beautiful green, like an emerald green,
Yeah.
that it makes really tea.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. I just made a quart.
Wow, yeah.
It's just like
Cool.
amazingly.
Yay. So Also very good for lymphatic ailments, so helps with the lymph nodes, kind of cleansing those out. Kidney stones is diuretic. Cleansing the blood helps with anemia, rheumatism, sciatica, arthritis, infertility. There's like lots and lots more. But those are the things I highlighted. So nettle is really neat and really awesome. So
you can get some from Landis's anytime you want.
yeah.
Anytime.
Oh.
Definitely.
We've got tons.
So next one is oat straw. Rich in minerals, silica, magnesium, phosphorus, chromium, iron, calcium, vitamin B, A, and C. So really good for you. Helps with the nervous system, stress, depression, anxiety, insomnia. So just really overall good. And this is one of those that's in the Women's Health Teas. So
What are you talking about right now?
oat straw.
Oat straw. Never heard of it.
So there's stuff out here. We'll show you what it looks like.
For our pregnant women, actually pregnant
Yeah.
and postpartum, we made a tea. We have them all drink. So it's
Yeah.
tea of alfalfa, oat straw, nettles, mint.
Mint, and there's one more, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Probably comfort.
It's red raspberry.
Red
Red
raspberry.
raspberry,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we,
couple
we
of
mix
those
it
I know
up
we're
together.
talking about.
And
But they
they're
do
just
really
good
well.
for everything.
Yeah. I'm really excited to start using some of these. I've used some of them in the past, but I haven't used all of these, so I'm like, this is encouraging to me. Yeah, I will come to you. Anyway. Motherwort is another one that's really good for cardiovascular symptoms, so tension, rhythm problems. It's gentle vasodilating, which means that your blood vessels are opening up and allowing blood to flow.
And what is it again?
Motherwort.
Not St. John's.
No, motherwort. So it's a nervine, which means it's calming. Gets to help with that, getting you back into that parasympathetic state. And it's also a uterine relaxant, and it can also help to start late periods, so it helps start blood flow with your menstrual cycle if you're having problems with being off and that type of thing. So. Next one is red clover, which is rich in isoflavonoids, and it has that. It changes to a phytoestrogen or phytoestrogen, which is similar to estrogen too, so helping with menopausal symptoms, that type of thing. Cardiovascular help, helping with circulation, cholesterol, arterial health, bone healing, helping with respiratory effects such as whooping cough, colds, asthma, bronchitis, and it's also really good for skin health. So next one's red raspberry, really good for reproductive health, tone and strengthen the uterus, normalize cycles and bleeding, and actually helps with premenstrual syndrome, where you're getting kind of moody, so helps with that.
Which one is that again?
Red raspberry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I will say it does work. I know this one from experience.
Wait, let me write that in my notes.
Antioxidant, it helps relax the blood vessels, decrease inflammation, fight free radicals, and it's an antithrombotic, which means that it prevents blood clots.
So that would be the leaf, not the fruit.
Red raspberry leaf, yeah.
Leaf.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to say leaf. You're right. Thank you. Alfalfa is my next one, which is rich in vitamins and minerals, vitamin B, C, D, and E. Helps with detoxing because of its diuretic effects. Cardiovascular, it helps prevent cholesterol absorption, so you're not having that buildup of cholesterol. And it's really high. It's high in potassium and iron, which also helps with cardiovascular issues. Reduces.
Roots go like 6 feet or something deep. That's why it can get so many
Alfalfa?
minerals. Alfalfa.
Really?
The
I
roots
didn't
are
know that.
extremely amazing.
Wow. So that's why it has is good in minerals and vitamins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just
Wow.
goes really far.
Cool. It also reduces inflammations, and it helps with indigestion, bloating, cramping, and allows you to have better bowel movements. So, if you have diarrhea or constipation, it will kind of normalize things.
It's one of those adaptogenic herbs again.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
It's such a fun word.
It is, but I have a little trouble saying it sometimes, so
Once you get it, it's just fun to say when
yeah.
you know it.
You sound very smart.
Yeah. So I included some heart health herbs as well, and just things that are more in general for stress relief. So the first one is hawthorn berries or flowers. And it helps with cardiovascular, helps to actually improve the nerve signals from the heart to help with the more blood to be pumped out of the heart, which in turn allows your body to have good blood flow, and the whole cardiovascular system is replenished and allowed to work. It also has this proanthocyanid, which is a blood pressure lowering thing. I'm not sure exactly what that one was, if it was an antioxidant or if it was a enzyme. So I'm sorry. It lowers cholesterol by helping with bile excretion as well. So one of those that they had done a little bit more study and were able to do some more things. Bile. B-I-L-E. Bile.
I thought it said bio.
Bile. Yeah, sorry. Antioxidants, so it has those flavonoids and it helps decrease inflammation. Linden flowers is the next one. And actually I didn't have any linden flowers because I couldn't find anything, but it was just a really neat herb that helps reduce mucus production, which I thought was interesting. And it's a stress reliever, helping with calming, and it eases muscle cramping. So it's another one that can be somewhat good for, I thought it could be good for women's problems as well. Although I didn't really see that in any of the recipes that I had found for women's problems. So it's a vasodilator, so it lowers blood pressure. It helps to open up your blood vessels so the blood can flow instead of being so tight that your blood is not able to, or your blood pressure is going to go higher then if you're tight. It's an anti-inflammatory as well. And then I included St. John's wort. I didn't make any of my teas with it, but I do have it there if you want to try it. It's one of those, in nursing world that I came from, St. John wort was always like, don't take it, don't take it. It interacts with everything, don't take it. And it does interact with some medications, and there's some things you need to be aware of if you want to take it. But that shouldn't prevent you from taking it if you need it. So it really helps with depression. It's similar to a serotonin reuptake inhibitors that they give out a lot. And it actually, they've done a lot of studies with seasonal affective disorder, and it does help with that as well as being an inflammation fighter, helping with burns and hemorrhoids and things like that. So it's a good herb, but just be mindful that it can interact with some medications if you're on medications. So. The next one is ginkgo leaves, which helps with cognitive health. I think there's been a lot of studies on ginkgo leaves that helps with that. Anxiety fighter, PMS symptom relief, migraine, cardiovascular. It actually helps prevent the plaque from building up. So it reduces that plaque, which is really good for people like my dad. So, and it's also an antioxidant. I'll have a couple more. Sorry, just about done. Yarrow flowers is the next one. It is really good for the gastrointestinal tract. It's an antispasmodic. Helps with the skin, and it helps to stop bleeding actually. For women, if you're having excessive bleeding, it would be a good herb for you. And it's really good for mastitis as well. Helps with an anxiety. It is similar acting to like Valium, which they give a lot in hospitals to help with panic attacks. Well, with anxiety, they give that a lot. It's an anti-inflammatory, and it also helps with blood pressure as well. So that's why I included it in heart health. And then the last one is after dinner tea, which we all are in need of, right? And this has chamomile, bee balm, orange peel, and fennel or anise or cardamom. You can kind of switch it up. I couldn't find bee balm, so I used lemon balm instead, since it's a similar herb. But I did include bee balm in my presentation because I just thought it was kind of a cool thing that has thymol in it, which is an antiseptic, which a lot of people actually would have heard about it in mouthwashes. A lot of mouthwashes would have thymol in them. Helps with GI symptoms, bloating, cramping, gas. It's an antifungal again, helps with that candida overgrowth. Did I say that right? Candida. There we go. And it's a relaxing nervine. And I thought this was just really kind of cool. They call it a diffusive herb, which, so when you take it, you feel this heat from the inside of you moving to your skin and dissipating. So if you have a fever, I would assume that we would take it and help with the fever, so it kind of helps to dissipate that heat and not make you feel so uncomfortable.
What is this again?
This is bee balm.
So bee balm, like you would plant in your yard, you would have in your flower garden? That
Bee
is
balm? Yeah.
bee balm.
So I think
Is
there's
it the
probably
leaf
different,
or the-
little bit different
The
types.
petals or
Hmm?
the leaf or the petals?
I think it's the leaf.
The
Yeah, because I know lemon balm is the leaf, so I would assume it would be the leaf.
Do you have some of
I
that?
don't know.
Oh.
It's one of those that you can plant and grow, and it's nice to have. Yeah.
They have great flowers, they look like
Yeah,
fireworks.
it's called bee balm for a reason. It
Right,
attracts
right,
bees, and
right.
yeah, so it's really nice to have in your garden. So it's also good to eat and drink. How about that? Orange peel. It's a bitter, so it helps with digestion, gas, nausea, diarrhea, bloating, and it prevents and removes phlegm from the digestive and respiratory tracts. So if you're having a buildup of that, that helps with that. This is one of those that you want to decoct for about 10 to 20 minutes. And, or you can infuse it 30 minutes to overnight. It's one of those you want to kind of let sit a little bit longer. So one of the, I think there's maybe one or two of them that have orange peel in, but it's kind of fun to put in. And if you get organic oranges, just save your peels and dry them, and then you don't have to pay for orange peel. So that's what I did, because I got an orange peel, so there's a bunch of that you can see there. And you just have to break them apart a little bit. And the last one is fennel, which is high in fiber, potassium, folate, vitamin C, and vitamin B6. Helps with heartburn, gas, colic, helps relax the colon, decrease respiratory tract secretions. And then you can use the seed and you can use the leaves. So the seed is especially good for relieving jaundice and expelling poison from blood.
It also
makes
really
sense,
helps if you have a nursing mother who can't produce enough milk.
There you go.
Fenugreek or fennel will really help to increase the milk supply.
That's good, yeah.
So fennel is one of the main ingredients in fenugreek.
What was the other
Okay.
one you said?
So we
Fennel
were
and
just
fenugreek.
wondering about that.
Fennel is
Fennel
in
is-
fenugreek.
I
Yes.
know fennel,
Okay.
but what was the other one?
Fenugreek.
Fenugreek.
Yeah,
Is that another herb?
that's what it was, yeah.
Combination. Okay.
Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier.
I have that at my house. Got it.
So, and the leaves are good for gastric ailments and brain tonic. So, that is all I have. I know it's a lot of information, and it's nicer to be able to look at a PowerPoint, and I apologize if that didn't work out. But if you want to scroll through that, feel free to do that. And then we can go and kind of play and experiment and try different teas if you guys want to. I have mixed up the teas that I talked about.